Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, talking to you today about the 10 words that people most often screw up on houses. Misused, misspelled, today on the Build Show. Okay guys, so the 10 words, what are they? The first word is coins, okay? Not C-O-I-N-S, right? What is a coin? A coin is something that happens on the outside of a building. We've seen them on a lot of our houses. The coins are something that lock the building together. And so there's coining, different types of coins that happened on buildings based on the architectural style, based on, how it was built, when it was built. Our French house had, very formal coining. Remember Thistle Hill that had coining, and our farmhouse up in Keller, it had very rustic coining. So that's number one. I hear it messed up the most often. Number two, balustrade, baluster, banister. What's the deal with that? Okay, so a balustrade is a length of stair, either the rising or going across that prevents you from falling over, right? That's the balustrade. But it includes the spindles, the handrail, all those different pieces is considered the balustrade. A baluster is the individual spindle, okay? And then a banister is the same thing as balustrade. So all of those things work together. Banister, baluster, balustrade. That's number two. Number three, muntins versus mullions. What's the deal? Okay, this is a mullion. A mullion is what separates two windows. So we've got two double hungs. You got three double hungs here. We've got two mullions, okay? And then the muntins, M-U-N-T-I-N, are the individual wood pieces that separate the glass. So I'll oftentimes hear them intermixed. They're not intermixable. Mullions are the big wide things that are structural. Muntins are the things inside the sash that separate the glass. Number four, rustication. What is rustication? Well, in Renaissance times, you'd oftentimes see these buildings that would have a very rough block on the bottom and then a very more refined block on the top. That rough block on the bottom was called rustication. It was a way of showing that the house or the building had kind of grown up out of the ground, that there was rocks being used, that the finer bricks were on top. It was a way of creating hierarchy in buildings and having a low service area versus a high, more formal area. So you see all kinds of different rustication, either just the big blocks, square blocks, or sometimes you'll see like almost wormholes and stuff carved over the face of the block. So rustication is the rough block at the bottom of a building. It's a very classical term, rustication. Number five, porte cochere, portico. What does that mean? Okay, so I had a project manager who corrected me on this and I ended up looking it up. He was right. Portico, okay, is a French term, porte cochere, okay, P-O-R-T-E, cochere, okay? And so what we end up saying today is portico, okay, which is not a word. That is just something that people say. And so, but porte cochere is the drive-through on the side of a house that is oftentimes, especially in the 20s with the bungalows and those type of houses, that they would have a drive-through on the side. You'd walk into the kitchen, but that little kind of columned entry that was tied to the house, that was a drive-through, is the porte cochere. Number six, portico. Okay, what is a portico? Portico is a porch, right? It's the same thing as a porch. It tends to be more classical, but it tends to be the column feature that overhangs the front door, typically in the house. May not have a full porch, but if it just has the front facade and then the columns come out, balustrade comes sometimes above it, that's the portico, okay? So different than the porch, it's typically in classical style houses where you have this little entry piece that's covered with columns, portico. Number seven, BOLECTION molding. What is a BOLECTION molding? It's fun to say, BOLECTION molding. A BOLECTION molding is a molding that typically in the Georgian period we see them is a molding that has a higher point in the middle than on the sides, okay? And so it projects out on it, and it's oftentimes used around fireplaces. If you remember Winter Tour, the Cecil bedroom had a BOLECTION molding that ran around the fireplace, no mantle shelf, and then the panels above. So early Georgian architecture and kind of things like that, you'd have a BOLECTION molding that would highlight a fireplace or highlight a molding, but it's typically a molding that is raised up in the middle and kind of lower on the sides. BOLECTION molding. Number eight, bed mold. Okay, what is a bed mold? If you've heard my talks on classical moldings and things, the bed mold is a supporting molding. That means it lifts up. And in a cornice, the bed mold is the lower molding, Corona, cimation up at the top, but the bed molding is a supporting molding at the bottom. Now today, what happens is it ends up being the crown in a house, and it's really not a crown that should be finishing at the top of the wall. That's what a terminating molding is. Remember the ta-da finishing, bed mold is a supporting molding. So it is something that should be lifting up and holding up something underneath. Bed mold, lower part of the cornice, important term, number 8. Number 9, gauged brick. Okay, what is a gauged brick? A gauged brick is in a brick arch. You'd have these different size bricks going across the top, and each one would be slightly different. And you see it in the great period of the Georgian and Federal era of those great brick houses, the solid masonry walls, and the gauged brick actually supported the opening, actually held up the opening because each brick was slightly different as you went across, all the way across. So it created this wonderful little detail that had very thin lines oftentimes supporting the molding. Oftentimes those bricks were rubbed. That's a bonus word you get to, and a rubbed brick is actually the face of the brick is rubbed off and it looks a little bit different than the other bricks, doesn't have that glazed surface. All right, number 10, bonding. Okay, what is bonding? That's another masonry term. There's a number of different ways that bricks were bonded together. And what that means is, in an historic house, you had a wall that was 2 bricks or 3 bricks wide, and they had to be bonded together. You had to bond those different layers of brick together. And so you see sometimes called an English bond, sometimes you call it a Flemish bond, and it's how the headers would be exposed on the outside of the building. And so a Flemish bond has every other one a header. An English bond has every about 4th or 5th line a header line. And so there's a number of different ways of bonding the house. Most times today, guys, we're building houses with a running bond, which means just the length of the brick, but it's better, okay, creates more visual interest if you will do different types of bonding. Is an opportunity for you to do some fun things when you're building houses, but understanding what bonding is and proper bonding really can make a difference. That's number 10. Okay guys, 10 words that we kind of mess up that will help you come across as more of a master builder. I hope it helps out. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Hull Millwork Hull Homes. Sign up for the newsletter, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I'm Brent Hull, thanks for watching.